Why, he won't hear it anyhow. He's probably back making somebody else suffer.
He's
fine with everybody but me.
Yeah.
See?
Well,
and I'll put my head up and he'll say, put your head down. See, and he slaps my head down, a little bit there. He's not the least bit careful. And if I say, what are you doing? Digging for potatoes? He'll say, oh, shut up, and he'll dig a little further. See? It's one of those relationships. Nice fellow.
Actually, it's probably more effective, though. You know what I mean? He says, all right, what do you want? Open up.
And I always let him beat me in golf.
Do you?
Always.
Sure. I still say you're getting a cut rate. You're not kidding me. You'd never let him beat you in golf unless he's much better than you. Maybe you can't avoid it.
There's the point. Answer. He's better than I am. Oh, my. Anybody who's listening, and some of the people who are, some of the guys especially, you know who I'm talking about, and you know that he is better than I am with one of those sticks. Anyhow, that's the reason I...
Well, I'd like to go on record as saying I have a very gentle...
Do you? No kidding.
Yes. I like gentle things.
You get a cut rate, too, do you?
No, I just get a nice, gentle job. I hope so.
We're going to talk with Jeanne Emmons this afternoon of the Planetarium, which is a part of the Historical Society, or is in the Historical Society. Right, Jeanne?
That's right.
Okay. You just rest easy for a minute, Jeanne, and we'll bring you on here on the Beeline session. I had to make sure of that. Have you been out there, Bob? To the Planetarium?
Isn't this awful? But I haven't been.
Neither have I, so that's why both of us are sitting here in front of Jeanne with red faces. And while we cool down, we'll get our first commercial. Robert?
Got the storm windows up yet? Well, don't forget your best defense against the north wind is a good offense, namely safe, dependable, flameless electric heating. This winter, enjoy even heat throughout your home with no flame, fumes, or fuel odor. Now, here's how it works. For a limited time, you can get up to $150 modernization allowance on the conversion of your present heating system to flameless electric heating. And with Ohio Power's special low rate for total electric homes, modern electric heating fits into practically every customer's monthly budget. Arrange for a free estimate without obligation of the installation and operating cost of flameless electric heating for your home. Receive, with your free estimate, your free West Bend Automatic Fiesta Perk coffee maker, retail value $8.95. 3 attractive colors to choose from. Call your recommended electric heating dealer soon or the Ohio Power office nearest you. See how you can live better. Electric, baby.
Oh, say
just wanted to give it a... You were reading the thing there, and I just wanted to see if you were paying attention.
Well, I heard everything you said. I especially heard that one part there. It says, you live better electrically, because I know that's the end of the commercial. I've read it, too, in the past. We'd like to welcome Jeanne Emmons. Jeanne, if you'll slide in this little bit here, kind of lean up here.
Very good.
That's fine. To Beeline. You're a local girl, aren't you?
Well, I'm from North Canton.
From North Canton? Well, that's more. We count anybody in the whole area, as being local. And first of all, what I want to say is, I want to find out, first of all, what a planetarium is. But this one is out of the Historical Society, right?
That's right. It's called the Hoover Price Planetarium. That's after the people who donated it to our center. Mr. and Mrs. Harley C. Price were the original donors. Actually, they gave a house, and then the money from that house, when it was sold, went into the planetarium.
And then the Hoover part is...
Well, Mrs. Harley Price was a Hoover. Was Hoover. That's where that comes from.
Well, now that straightens that out. Now tell me something else. What is your official capacity at the planetarium?
My position is planetarium director.
Now, the next question is, what is a planetarium? I always think this is kind of nice to come out with, because maybe there's somewhere along the line, like me, who doesn't realize what a planetarium happens to be. Usually, what's one of those things where they have the fish?
Aquarium.
Aquarium, that's it, an aquarium, see? And a planetarium just could be either talking about the planets or plants, now one of the two, but in this sense it is not. What is a planetarium?
Well, a planetarium has come to mean a place where you reproduce the sky. You reproduce the real sky, and there see the heavens as they would be seen out of doors. Many people do not realize this. They say that a planetarium, or think a planetarium, is a place where you see the real stars, such as an observatory, but you have to distinguish between the two terms.
Now, you do not have an observatory there, right?
No, we don't, no.
This is a reproduction on the inside of the building, of the sky.
That's right. There's a dome and a projector which projects little points of light on the dome above the heads of the observers. And these represent the real stars at great distances.
Now, if I were to walk outside on a clear night, would I be able to see what I had just seen on the inside?
Well, it would depend. If the planetarium sky were set in the way that the heavens were for a particular time of the evening, yes, you would see the same thing.
This brings me to this question. How often do you change it, or do you change it? In other words, the star, if I go today and I see the stars at the planetarium, then I go back 3 weeks from now, do I see the same stars in the same place?
Well, 3 weeks from now, you would not see the same stars in the same place, because 3 weeks from now, we have a new program. We have a program which reproduces the sky over Bethlehem almost 2,000 years ago. And obviously, that sky is not the same as the one which we see now.
It isn't?
No. Oh, no.
Oh, well, now, you first of all, tell me why. What do you mean? The sky is the sky, isn't
We
it?
are at a different latitude, first of all. We are at about 41 degrees north latitude. Bethlehem is at about 31 degrees. And with a change of latitude, you get a change of the appearance of the sky.
In other words, the people who live in Bethlehem, then, do not see or in Israel now, do not see the same sky as we see?
Well, they see the stars the same way we see them, but the sky, the location of the stars is
going to be different.
slightly
It would
different.
have to be different.
But the Big Dipper's over there, too, isn't it?
Yes, they can see most of the Big Dipper most of the time.
Is the Big Dipper up there all the time?
At our latitude of 41 degrees north, the Big Dipper is always in our sky. It's what
Can
is
be
said
low
to
or
be
high.
circumpolar. Yes.
Circumpolar.
Yes.
Hey, that sounds terribly interesting. What is it?
Well-
in other words, it just kind of it goes back and forth in our line of vision or something
Well,
of
you
that nature?
see, any star or star pattern which is close to the north pole of the sky, the North Star, will remain in the sky for a longer period of time than things which are farther away from the North Star. And the Big Dipper happens to be close enough to the North Star that it never sets below the horizon, rising and setting like most of the stars do because they're further away. So we can see the Big Dipper on any evening.
But it's clear
It's
enough.
always in the sky. That's clear.
It'll be in a
That's right.
different place, though, from season to season or
Yes,
time to time.
at the
Yeah.
same time of the evening, at different times of year, it will be seen in different locations in the sky.
See, the only reason we ask you about the Big Dipper is this is the only thing we know about the sky.
No, I can find the Little Dipper
Oh,
once
can
in a
you?
while. On a real clear night, I can find the Little Dipper and the North Star once in a while, because that goes off the one corner. You take the
That's
Big Dipper,
right.
right? Huh?
The pointer
The,
stars.
yeah. In the pointer stars?
The pointer stars, the last two stars of the Big Dipper's bowl always point to the North Star.
Yeah, you start at the bottom one and shoot up through
That's
the top,
right.
and there it is up there. And the big bright one. Well, you knew that, Bill.
Oh, it's not so
Surely you knew
bright.
that.
No.
Not always bright?
No, the North Star is not as bright as many of the
Well,
other
what's the bright
stars
one
in
right
the
next
sky.
to it that I've always thought was the North Star then? Because there's a bright
Well,
one in there
there
once in a
are
while.
two stars in the bowl of the Little Dipper, which are relatively bright. They are brighter, I suppose, than the North Star itself. But the North Star is only a second magnitude star. That means it's not as bright as 20 of the other stars, which are called first magnitude stars.
Oh, listen, don't you go that far too fast, girl. I mean, you're way past this now. We'll do a commercial, then we'll come
Okay.
back with magnitude,
As a
friends.
matter of fact, I think we might even do two while I'm thinking that one over.
A Lawson star is on the way to everywhere.
You see a Lawson sign on every thoroughfare.
It takes just a minute out of your day to get all the savings coming your way.
So stop in,
Hop in,
pop in,
drop in, shop in Lawson's.
Oops, right now you can buy 2 loaves of Lawson's regular 17-cent white bread for just $1. And while you're at Lawson's, check the many holiday treats Lawson's is featuring, like delicious fruitcakes. A 2-pound fruitcake, just 99 cents. A 3-pound fruitcake is $1.39. To make your dessert more festive, top it with Lawson's fresh whipping cream, only 42 cents a half pint, 70 cents a pint. Don't forget Lawson's 17-cent white bread, 2 loaves for $1, and the holiday items now on sale at Lawson's.
so stop in, hop in, pop in, drop in.
Shop in Lawson's.
Just find the North Star, and there's a Lawson's directly below it. That's the way it works out. It's,
No.
not really, huh?
No.
Oh, incidentally, if you were to go straight down from the North Star, where would you be?
The North Pole.
North Pole. Is it directly above the North Pole?
Well, not directly above the true North Pole. It's removed by about 1 1/4 degrees. But it's so close that we call it the North Star.
Is there any well-known star directly above us? Directly above us, usually?
Well, it changes. Any minute, any second of the day, the star or a body which is overhead is different.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to talk in a little simpler terms here in just a minute. See, but first of all, we're going to get our dipper, and we're going to get... Is this, I hope, for what?
This is for Ford.
Oh, here I thought it was going to be something to drink.
Paddle your way out.
Have you seen this man? He's about your height and weight. He is looking for an automobile that offers more than just transportation. This man is wanted. Wanted to test drive a new total performance Ford for 64, the greatest thing that has happened to cars in years. If you answer the description, then report directly to your Ford dealer. He will reward you with the key to the 64 Ford of your choice. Falcon, Fairlane, Super Torque Ford, Thunderbird. Take a test drive. Punish it over the roughest, toughest roads you can find. There is no obligation. You'll also be amazed to discover the big change in Ford for 64. Wanted. Test drivers to drive the most wanted car of them all. Report to your Ford dealers directly.
We can't seem to get ourselves settled down with Jeanne this afternoon, mostly because we're loaded with commercials here, at least in this first quarter hour. So why don't we just make a station break, Bob, and then we'll come back with Jeanne. It's a little early, what's the difference? This is the Ohio Broadcasting Company.
It's reheatable, 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 reheatable.
Hill's Brothers coffee so unbeatable, and the proof of this is
It's reheatable, 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 reheatable.
How good can a coffee be? Consider Hills Brothers coffee. Great coffee. So perfectly blended you can even reheat it with confidence and without fear of bitterness. What better proof of a superb coffee?
reheatable, reheatable,
Hills Brothers coffee so unbeatable.
and the proof of this is
It's reheatable, reheatable.
Hills Brothers coffee. So perfectly blended you can even reheat it.
Yes, Hills Brothers coffee so unbeatable.
and the proof of this is
It's reheatable.
head for the hills.
WHBC and WHBC FM in Canton, Beeline time 1:30, and we're talking to Jeanne Emmons.
Yes, from the planetarium. Now I think we can kind of settle down here, Jeanne, and ask a few questions. Now, first of all, if we're going to do anything at all by looking at the stars, I happen to have a neighbor lady, incidentally, who's very interested in the stars, and she appreciates them. And she tries to get us out there, her husband and me, for that matter. She'll say, "Can't you see that up there?" And neither one of us can. We either see it or we just give it the business. What would you do? Would be the best thing to do is come out to your planetarium first of all, if you wanted to know something about the sky?
Well, it would depend what you wanted to know. If you were in general interested in locating certain constellation or star figures, it would be a very good idea to come to the planetarium, because here we can reproduce all of them.
That's what I mean. I mean, just some simple thing to know a little bit about it. I mean, you start talking about this or that business. I mean, just to know a little bit about it. Would it be better to start at your
You
place?
have a lecture that kind of helps people understand the heavenly bodies. Is that the idea?
That's right.
Very good.
Now, this is kind of an unfair question, I'll grant you, but what do you find so tremendously interesting about the sky and the stars?
Well,
I warned you it was an unfair question. I know.
I don't know that I can answer that. It is a fascinating subject to contemplate, because, after all, our Earth is merely a speck in the vast universe. We have all of these other celestial bodies beyond us, composing most of the mass or matter in the universe, and therefore it's kind of fitting, I think, that we think about these things.
Well, there's a
sometimes.
timeless quality to realizing that the stars we see now were the stars that were seen centuries ago, realizing that there is a pattern to all this, It would seem to me this would be a fascinating aspect of it. Isn't this true, that stars we see now, are they the same ones that they used to see, or aren't they?
Yes. The stars that we see now are the same stars that were seen by men thousands of years ago. And it's true that there is this timeless quality because of their non-changing.
Well, I heard somebody say one time that the Earth was slowing down, like, a tenth of a millionth of a second every 7,000 years or something like that. It wasn't really enough to get scared about, and in this generation. What about the stars? Do they, have you noticed over the years, those of you that study it, do they have patterns like that indicate some are slowing down, others are speeding up and changing this pattern, or is it a very definite, rigid thing?
No, the sky itself is really, when you come right down to it, changing, because the stars are all moving through space at great speeds. And therefore, through thousands of years, the stars are changing their positions against the celestial sphere. They have what is called proper motion in the sky as seen from an observer on Earth.
You say the stars are moving all the time?
Oh, yes.
Very rapidly?
Oh, definitely. Our sun, our own sun around which the Earth travels, is moving through space at, in terms of miles per second.
Well, now, would this have to do with anything like, for example, this is maybe another very elementary question to you, but why do we, when we go out at night, sometimes we can see, just millions of stars, and then other nights we can go out and we see just a very few?
Well, you can never see millions of stars. First of all,
It looks like it anyhow.
With normal eyesight and unaided eyes, you can see at most probably about 3,000 stars at any one time from any one place. But when clouds and so forth come in and cover up some of these stars, and therefore we see fewer.
No, what I mean is this can be a clear night. So far as we're concerned. Now, perhaps those clouds are way up there. I don't know.
That's
but
probably
it looks like a perfectly clear night, and yet it's very difficult, perhaps, to see the Milky Way. Now, you say there are only 3,000 stars?
No, of course there are billions of more stars in the universe.
Oh, only that you can see.
But you can
Bill.
see from one place on the Earth's surface, one person at one time, about 3,000.
Boy, it looks like there's more than that in the Milky Way alone.
Well, the point is,
individual.
You see, the people, other places see stars too, not just where we are.
There's about 9,000 altogether that can be viewed from a person on the Earth throughout the year.
You mean these same 9,000 stars are the romantic thing that people for years and years have gone? How about?
Yes.
Well, now, are all these 9,000 known, charted, named maybe, or are there some that are not designated?
Well, most of them have a designation. Usually the stars are classified according to Greek letters. The sky is divided into regions based on the old constellation names, and then the stars, usually according to brightness, are given a designation of a Greek letter, alpha for usually the brightest, then beta, gamma, and so forth, right down through the Greek alphabet. And if they run out of those and there's still more stars, they start with other symbols.
Could you show me how to find Alpha, Tau, Omega up in the sky? I think that'd be kind of interesting.
You'd have to tell me what constellation or region of the sky you were concerned with.
Well, that constellation that he was talking about there, I mean, that's a pretty good-sized group. I know.
A fraternal type thing.
That was quite a group there, as I recall. You told me about it.
Not was, is.
Is.
As a matter of fact.
Well, it hasn't been the same since you left, however,
There's probably about an hour's discussion we could get into there, but let's do this thing.
More people than ever are shopping at IGA. More people than ever are shopping the friendly way. For table right meat with flavor that's tender, for produce that's fresher, top quality too. More people than ever are shopping at IGA.
For a superior treat, nothing beats a delicious Superior ham. With a Superior ham in your refrigerator, you'll ask Sunday visitors to stay for supper and really mean it. for a really good tender ham everyone will rave about, get a Superior ham at your nearest IGA table-right food dealers and say, better order your Thanksgiving Superior ham now. Superior ham for a superior treat at any IGA table-right food dealer near you.
Now, when I mention a twinkling star, you're probably going to tell me that there isn't such a thing as a twinkling star, huh? But what you know, we know the old saying, a twinkle, twinkle, little star, and so do stars actually twinkle?
Yes, they do appear to twinkle because of interference caused by the Earth's atmosphere.
It's not the star at all. I mean, it's just the...
Oh, no, if you could go above the atmosphere of the Earth, go above that layer of Earth which surrounds our layer of air that surrounds our Earth, then we would be able to see the stars shining brilliantly without any twinkle at all.
You mean up in space?
Yes.
Like our astronauts were in?
Yes.
They could see stars a whole lot better than apparently than what we have ever seen them, right?
Yes.
I'd like to ask you this. A star is a star, I guess. What's the... Is a star...
63.
Is a star but a matter, a body of matter? Is that the idea? Is it like a... We think of meteorites, something that breaks away and either burns up or falls to Earth. Are they a part of a star, or were they a part of a star?
It is thought that meteors were once parts of comets. Comets maybe that have burned out.
All right, now,
stars are...
Hold it. What's a comet as opposed to a star, then? What is a comet?
Well, a comet is a much smaller body. A comet is generally part of a system, a solar system such as ours, and it travels in an orbit around the star at the center of this system like the planets do in our solar system.
A star has comets that goes around it, then?
Yes, a star such as our sun has comets and planets traveling in orbits around it.
Then a body of matter has to be rather large then to become a star, because to reflect it would have to be so big, kind of like. Do you have any idea?
It does not reflect, it emits light.
Oh, it emits light.
Yes, in a star you have a lot of nuclear activity taking place, which can be best compared to many explosions of giant hydrogen bombs occurring at one time. And this creates energy, which results in a lot of light being
But it
emitted.
has to be a sizable body for us to see it, then. Is that the idea?
Oh, yes, it has to be sizable for this kind of action to take place.
The fact of the matter is, then, a star is a star when it's big enough for us to see it. Or is that unfair or untrue?
Well, we can see a planet, too, by reflected light, but a planet is a cold body, which does not emit light of its own.
Oh, now a star is something that bubbles and with gases and all that business. It emits light. That's what makes a star.
It emits light.
And a comet is a little gizmo that is flying around a star, right? Okay.
Well, yes.
And then what is a planet? That's like the Earth.
A planet is another type of body which circles a star or sun like the Earth and can be seen by reflected light only.
Do all stars have things circling them?
It is thought that many of them do, but we can't tell whether they do or not because most of them are so very far away.
Since they are so very far away, Jeanne, and by the way, how far away are they? Have they ever had an idea?
Yes.
They've calculated it? Well, how far away would they be?
Well, each star has its own individual distance, and sometimes it's rather difficult for them to determine just exactly what this distance is.
But approximately.
Well, the brightest star we can ever see, Sirius, is about 8.7 light years away. And a light year is light traveling at its rate of about 186,000 miles per second for 1 year's time.
And this is 8.7 of those away?
That's Sirius. Now you can take some other stars, like the further one, Deneb. That's a first magnitude star. It's thought to be very far away, maybe 1,500 light years. Rigel's another one, maybe 1,500
now,
light
this
years
is
away.
Billions and billions of miles.
Oh, definitely, trillions.
Well, now, in something like this, and I'm not meaning to take all the old astronomers of years ago, you see, but how do we know that this is emitting light, and how do we know this is matter, and it has its own explosion type thing?
Well, the scientists, the physicists, the astronomers can create models of stars. They know the temperatures and so forth, and they can figure out just what's happening in a star. They know by their models.
If I remember from some early general science, is it not true that it is entirely possible that a star, if we're looking up in the heavens, Jeanne, and we see a star suddenly disappear, and let's assume it's not our eyesight, it's a matter of...
Bob,
Yeah.
excuse me, just a moment.
Yes.
We're going to interrupt our program for just a moment to bring you this bulletin from the ABC Radio Network.
Here is a bulletin from ABC Radio. More on the shots fired at President Kennedy's motorcade today in downtown Dallas. No casualties have been reported in the first bulletin. However, there is a later bulletin that says there is perhaps a serious injury. The incident occurred near the county sheriff's office on Main Street, just east of an underpass leading toward the trademark, where the president was to make an address.
Don, let's stand by. Let's keep all the nets on all the stations on the line. We feel that we have an important news bulletin here, and there are details coming in. All stations stand by. It is believed now that, Don, you better read this.
All right, right. Ladies and gentlemen, to add to this bulletin from Dallas, Texas, there is a possibility that the president, Mr. John F. Kennedy, has been seriously wounded. Now, we ask your attention to stand by on this bulletin.
At 14, you are certainly too young to be a match for Mary Poppins. But I imagine baby and mother.
Have we got it? Yeah, now we've got it. My goodness.
Their own network program there in a great big,
big
hurry.
We'll be standing by, and immediately upon receipt of any additional information on this very tragic news, we'll of course do it. I think before we get Jeanne here and just to kind of cover things here for a moment, I think we'd better take time for this word, Bill.
Hey, Sam, where you going in such a big hurry?
I'm heading for the golf station to see the golf sweepstakes winners list.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe my name is on that list for one of those great new GE portable TV sets or a nifty GE transistor radio.
Did you enter the contest?
Enter? You don't need to enter. It's a new kind of sweepstakes where golf enters every registered car owner in the state of Ohio automatically. You're entered, I'm entered, and no purchases required.
Hey.
All we've got to do is go down to the golf station and see if our names are on the winners list they post there.
Well, what are we waiting for? Let me in that car with you. Let's both get down to that golf station fast.
Hurry, we're wasting time. There's not much time left.
And what are you waiting for? David Mills, 445 East Florida Avenue, Sebring, Ohio, has just claimed his General Electric transistor radio. He was just one of the 300 lucky winners this week. There's only one left. You'd better hurry to your Gulf station today. It's 1:44, Bill, and we still have Jeanne with us, and we have 3 or 4 minutes.
We now join the ABC Radio Network for further details on the president.
President Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally were cut down by assassins' bullets as they toured downtown Dallas today in the president's famous bubble-top limousine. ABC's correspondent Bob Clark has just reported from Dallas that he saw the president being lifted and placed aboard a stretcher, taken into the Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas.
Don, Bob Clark is still on the phone. He has additional details from Dallas. We switch now to ABC's Bob Clark in Dallas, Texas.
In a press pool car, just 3 or 4 automobiles behind the presidential car in the motorcade, when 3 shots suddenly rang out from the crowd. The motorcade had just passed out of downtown Dallas and was moving through an area of smaller crowds when the shots were suddenly fired. The Secret Service immediately sped up the motorcade and took the critically wounded president directly to Parkland Memorial Hospital, some 3 or 4 miles away. I stood within a few feet as the president was lifted out of the open limousine, placed on a stretcher, and taken into the hospital. It was uncertain at this moment whether or not Mr. Kennedy was dead, but he was motionless. The First Lady hovered over him as he was placed aboard the stretcher and went into the hospital with him. There was no indication that Mrs. Kennedy was hurt. Lyndon Johnson, the vice president, however, also appeared to be slightly injured. he walked into the hospital, but holding one arm as if he had also been hit by one of the bullets. Governor Connolly of Texas was also wounded. There is no immediate word as to how critically. The governor was sitting in the front seat of the open limousine, the president and Mrs. Kennedy in the rear seat. There's no immediate word from the hospital as to the condition of any of the others in the party. There has been no word yet from the Secret Service as to who may have fired the shot.
You've been listening to ABC. Correspondent Bob Clark reporting from Dallas, Texas. Let me repeat that we have only this word. It is not an official word, but a Secret Service agent who is assigned to Mrs. Kennedy, his name is Clint Hill, said to Mrs. Kennedy, he is dead. This is a report from United Press International. That is the only word we have on the state of the president at this very moment, other than the fact that he definitely is injured. He was taken to Parkland Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. In addition, Vice President Johnson, as Bob Clark just reported, he walked into the hospital. He was holding an arm as though he appeared to have been injured too. Texas Governor John Connolly also was injured as the assassin's bullets tore into the president's bubble-top limousine in Dallas today. Apparently, there were several shots fired, as Bob Clark reported. He heard 3 shots. He was traveling in the motorcade just a couple of cars behind the president's limousine as they went through downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy, as the action occurred, jumped up in the limousine, grabbed her husband, and then cried, "Oh no!" The Secret Service immediately gave word for the motorcade to pick up speed and head immediately to the Parkland Hospital in Dallas.
Don, we might add here that the 155 news, of course, will not be heard. We will stay continuously on the air. We will not leave the air until we have definite word of the circumstances in Dallas. And you might just recap now, Bob, Don, what we have heard so far, also including the report from our man in Dallas, Bob Clark. Is Bob Clark ready with another report? All right, we have further details from Dallas, and we switch immediately to... As you were there. We switch immediately to Bob Clark, ABC in Dallas.
Another phone.
One moment. Are you still there?
Dr. Dowdy, I'll pick...
We have a little line trouble with Dallas. However, I do believe we still have Bob Clark there, so we will bring him in momentarily. This is ABC Radio News in New York, bringing you the news that shots were fired at President Kennedy and President Kennedy's party in Dallas just a short while ago. It is believed that the president is at least critically wounded. One report has it that the president was fatally wounded. However, that is not official at this moment. I'll give you back to Don Gardner.
We can give you this description of what took place down there in Dallas, Texas today. 3 shots rang out. They were fired at the president's bubble-top limousine. President Kennedy, Texas Governor John Connolly, and Vice President Lyndon Johnson traveling in that automobile along with Mrs. Kennedy. After the shots rang out, Mrs. Kennedy jumped up, grabbed her husband, cried, "Oh no!" Immediately, the Secret Service gave orders for the president's motorcade to take off and speed up and go directly to a medical hospital. And at the hospital, pandemonium broke out in the corridors. Reporters just about 5 lengths behind the chief executive's car, and Bob Clark of ABC's staff traveling with the president was in one of those cars. They said that it sounded like a horrible burst of gunfire. Immediately, Secret Service agents pulled out their pistols and rifles and took all of the precautions that were necessary. Now we have additional word from Bob Clark. Here he is in Dallas, Texas.
The presidential motorcade had just passed through heavy crowds in downtown Dallas and was circling through the fringes of the business district when 3 shots suddenly rang out somewhere in the crowd. It was impossible to see from 3 or 4 automobiles back in the motorcade where I was riding with a press pool. Impossible to see immediately what had happened. But the Secret Service pulled out a machine gun and then gave the orders that sped the motorcade at some 60 miles an hour directly to Parkland Memorial Hospital, about 3 or 4 miles away. There was no panic, but shock and, of course, grief by other members of the party who were close enough to see what had happened. When the motorcade reached the hospital, the few reporters riding in the pool leaped out, raced immediately to the side of the president's open limousine. He was riding in one of the White House Cadillac limousines that is carried across the country, used for parades and other presidential processions. The president was lying in the back seat of the limousine, his head cradled in the First Lady's lap. At this stage, there was no official word as to whether Mr. Kennedy was still alive, but he lay motionless on the back seat of the car for some 2 minutes while a stretcher was wheeled out from the hospital. The president was lifted out of the car, placed gently on the stretcher, and wheeled immediately into the surgical area of the hospital. The First Lady followed, holding him with one hand, followed the other members of the party into the hospital. It appeared at this stage that Vice President Lyndon Johnson might also have been struck, though he was riding in a car behind the president. He walked into the hospital, but holding one arm as if he might have been hit by one of the 3 bullets. Governor Connally of Texas was also wounded seriously, but there is no immediate word as to his condition. The governor lay half stretched out in the front seat of the presidential limousine. He had ridden through the crowds in the presidential procession. Mr. Kennedy had flown from Fort Worth to Dallas and then entered the motorcade at Love Field in Dallas. The crowds along the streets going into Dallas and in the downtown area were extremely large and extremely friendly. A White House press aide riding in the press pool car noted repeatedly the absence of antagonistic signs. There were very few Goldwater signs. I noted one hand-lettered sign held by a young man which said, "I hold John F. Kennedy in utter contempt," but that was almost the only sign in the crowd that indicated any bitterness toward the Kennedy party. The shots rang out as the motorcade had entered an open area just beyond the main downtown business district. It was impossible to determine where the shots had come from. The immediate interest of the Secret Service, of course, was in protecting the president at that stage, while some Secret Service men must have peeled off to try to track down the assassin. The main group of Secret Service men traveling with the president sped on with him to the hospital.
Now, this is Don Gardner back in New York. You've just been listening to Bob Clark, ABC's man on the scene, traveling with the presidential party in Dallas, Texas. To repeat once again, President Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally were shot from ambush today in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas. It is not known whether either was killed. It is not known whether either was killed. Now, Mr. Kennedy apparently was shot in the head. He fell face down in the back seat of the car. Blood was on his head. Mrs. Kennedy, who rushed to his assistance, cried, "Oh no," tried to hold up his head. Mr. Connally, Governor Connally, he remained half-seated. He slumped a little bit to the left. There was blood on his face and on his forehead. The president and the governor then rushed immediately by the Secret Service motorcade to Parkland Hospital near the Dallas Trademark, That's just a little way away from where Mr. Kennedy was to have made a speech today. Now, this scene described by Associated Press reporter Jack Bell. He asked Kenneth O'Donnell, a presidential assistant, if Mr. Kennedy was dead. O'Donnell gave no answer. Mr. Kennedy is now at the Parkland Hospital. Jack Bell said that Mr. Kennedy was transferred to an ambulance there after he had been wounded in the motorcade. The top of the president's limousine, the bubble-top limousine, was down at the time. It had been raining in Dallas, and the shots were fired right through the bubble-top limousine. Also in that car with President and Mrs. Kennedy were Vice President and Mrs. Lyndon Johnson and Texas Governor Connally. Lyndon Johnson, as Bob Clark reported just a few moments ago, seemed to have had some kind of a wound where he walked into the hospital but was holding his arm, one of his arms, as he strolled in, as though he might have possibly have been wounded in the assassination. The president had landed only a short time before at the Dallas Love Airport. He was driving to the Trademark in Dallas. He was scheduled to deliver a luncheon speech sponsored by 3 Dallas organizations. The largest turnout of the current Texas tour was on the streets to greet Mr. Kennedy. The police said that it was in the number of about 250,000 people who had turned out. And just a little while ago, the acting White House secretary traveling with the presidential party, Malcolm Kilduff, when asked about the president's condition, simply said, "I have no word now." Let me repeat, this is the only bulletin information that we have that is true. President Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally were shot in the motorcade in Dallas, Texas today from ambush. It is not known, I repeat, it is not known whether either was killed.
Might point out, Don, that Bob Clark, who is at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, reports that the president apparently has been critically injured at the very least. Bob Clark is at the hospital and will have a report on the president's condition just as soon as it's made available.
The Secret Service agents were right in the car immediately following the president's limousine. They quickly pulled out their automatic rifles. It is not known, however, if they returned any fire, nor if anyone has been apprehended for the ambush shooting. Now, also at the Dallas hospital, Rear Admiral George Berkeley, the White House doctor, rushed there. He headed for the emergency room where the president and Governor Connally were taken. The motorcade was so strung out as a result of the Secret Service departure from the scene of the shooting that members of the Kennedy staff were anywhere from 15 minutes to a half hour behind in trying to reach the hospital. And also this word from Dallas, Texas, Representative Albert Thomas says that he was informed President Kennedy and Governor Connally of Texas were still both alive after having been shot in an assassination attempt.
Don, let me get this in. Bob Clark has just reported from Parkland Hospital in Dallas that the president is still alive, although obviously and almost for certain he's very critically ill. But Bob Clark reports that President Kennedy is still alive after having been shot.
Yes, and Representative Albert Thomas of Texas, Congressman Thomas, standing just outside the corridor of the emergency room at Parkland Hospital, where both Mr. Kennedy and Governor Connally are under treatment, says that he has been told, that is, Congressman Thomas has been told that the president is still alive, but in very critical condition. Is still alive. Mr. Kennedy and Texas Governor Connally reported to be still alive, but in very critical condition in the hospital in Dallas, Texas.
And Don, I think we have a later word on that. We'll switch immediately to Bob Clark in Dallas.
We have just received the word here at Parkland Memorial Hospital that President Kennedy is still alive, though in critical condition. Governor Connally of Texas, who was wounded by one of the other of the 3 bullets fired at the presidential motorcade, is also alive. His condition is also reported critical. That is the only medical word we have at this moment. Mr. Kennedy has now been at the hospital for close to a half hour. He was taken in to the surgical area on a stretcher. We do not have any information at this moment as to whether he is undergoing surgery.
We have this word just received in the ABC newsroom in New York, Bob, that a call was sent out immediately as the presidential party arrived at the hospital for all of the top surgical specialists in Dallas. Call also went out, naturally, for a Roman Catholic priest. And Congressman Jim Wright of Fort Worth says also that both President Kennedy and Governor Connolly, though seriously injured, are still alive. Now, that adds to the additional information that Bob Clark gave you just a few moments ago, and also to the word of Representative Albert Thomas of Texas, who from just outside the emergency room said both Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Connolly were still alive, but in very critical condition. From Hyannisport, Massachusetts, ABC correspondent Larry Newman reports that the president's mother, Mrs. Rose Kennedy, has been advised that the president has been shot. Mr. Kennedy's father was reported to be taking a nap. He's not been awakened to be given the sad news about the assassination attempt on the president today. This is ABC News. We're standing by until we have more information. Let me repeat the substance of the general bulletin. President Kennedy